Those who stand on tiptoes do not stand firmly. Those who rush ahead don't get very far. Those who try to outshine others dim their light. It's difficult to know much for certain about the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu. Even his name can be a little confusing. It is also sometimes translated as Lao Tzu or Lao Tse. Lao Tzu is said to have been a record keeper in the court of the central Chinese Zhou dynasty in the 6th century BC and an older contemporary of Confucius. He may also have been entirely mythical, much like Homer in Western culture. Lao Tzu is said to have tired of life in the Zhou court as it grew increasingly morally corrupt. He left and rode on a water buffalo to the western border of the Chinese Empire. Although he was dressed as a farmer, the border official recognized him and asked him to write down his wisdom. According to this legend, what Lao Tzu wrote became the sacred text known as the Tao Te Ching. After writing this piece, Lao Tzu is said to have crossed the border and disappeared from the history, perhaps to become a hermit. In reality, the Tao Te Ching is likely to be the compilation of the works of many authors over time. But stories about Lao Tzu and the Tao Te Ching itself passed down through different Chinese philosophical schools. For over 2,000 years, Lao Tzu was the leading figure in the spiritual practice known as Taoism, which is more than 2,000 years old and still popular today. There are at least 20 million Taoists, and perhaps even 500 million living around the world. Now, especially in China and Taiwan, they practice meditation, chant scriptures, and worship a variety of gods and goddesses in temples. Taoists also make pilgrimages to 5 sacred mountains in eastern China to pray at the temples and absorb spiritual energy from these holy places, which are believed to be governed by immortals. Taoism is deeply intertwined with other branches of thought like Confucianism and Buddhism. There is a story about the 3 great Asian spiritual leaders, Lao Tzu, Confucius, and Buddha. All were meant to have tasted vinegar. Confucius found it sour, much like he found the world full of degenerate people. And Buddha found it bitter, much like he found the world to be full of suffering. But Lao Tzu found the world sweet. This is telling, because Lao Tzu's philosophy tends to look at the apparent discord in the world and see an underlying harmony guided by something called the Tao. The Tao Te Ching, which describes the Tao, is somewhat like the Bible. It gives instructions often vague and generally open to multiple interpretations on how to live a good life. It discusses the Tao as the way of the world, which is also the path to virtue, happiness, and harmony. The way is not inherently confusing or difficult, but to follow the Tao, we need to go beyond simply reading and thinking about it. Instead, we must learn flowing or effortless action. It's a sort of purposeful acceptance of the way of the Tao and living in harmony with it. This might seem lofty and bizarre, but most of Lao Tzu's suggestions are very simple. First, we ought to take more time for stillness. To the mind that is still, Lao Tzu said the whole universe surrenders. We need to let go of our schedules, worries, and complex thoughts for a while and simply experience the world. We spend so much time rushing from one place to the next in life. But Lao Tzu reminds us nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. We must remember that certain things, grieving, growing wiser, developing a new relationship, only happen on their schedule, like the changing of leaves in the fall or the blossoming of the bulbs we planted months ago. When we are still and patient, we also need to be open. The usefulness of a pot comes from its emptiness, Lao Tzu said. Empty yourself of everything. Let your mind become still. If we are too busy, too preoccupied with anxiety or ambition, we will miss 1,000 moments of the human experience that are our natural inheritance. We need to be awake to the way the sounds of the birds in the morning, the way other people look when they are laughing, and the feeling of the wind against our faces. These experiences reconnect us to parts of ourselves. This is another key point of Lao Tzu's writing. We need to be in touch with our real selves. We spend a great deal of time worrying about who we ought to become, but we should instead take time to be who we already are at heart. We might rediscover a generous impulse or a playful side we had forgotten, or simply an old affection for long walks. Our ego is often in the way of our true self, which must be found by being receptive to the outside world, rather than focusing on some critical, too ambitious internal image. When I let go of what I am, Lao Tzu wrote, I become what I might be. Nature is particularly useful for finding ourselves. Lao Tzu liked to compare different parts of nature to different virtues. He said, the best people are like water which benefits all things and does not compete with them. It stays in lowly places that others reject. This is why it is so similar to the Tao. Each part of nature can remind us of a quality we admire and should cultivate ourselves. the strength of the mountains, the resilience of trees, the cheerfulness of flowers. Of course, some issues must be addressed by action, and there are times for ambition. Yet, Lao Tzu's work is important for Taoists and non-Taoists alike, especially in a modern world distracted by technology and focused on what seems to be constant, sudden, and severe changes. His words serve as a reminder of the importance of stillness, openness, and discovering buried yet central parts of ourselves. How can we improve when we stop trying to improve? Many people waste their efforts trying to better their lives with questionable results. They gain knowledge and chase external things while exhausting their bodies and burdening their minds, only to end up in discontent. The Taoists observed that humans tend to act in counterproductive ways, and in their attempts to alter the natural way, they only make things worse. All these strivings, rules, ethics, and values surely are invented to benefit humanity. But according to the ancient Taoist sages, we should get rid of them all. Why? Because all these man-made ideas only remove us further from the natural flow of life. Trying to alter what nature has intended is like swimming against the stream. It's exhausting and gets us nowhere. This video is about not trying to change the world, to gain the world. Behind the ever-changing universe lies a mysterious and undefinable force that the Taoists call Tao, for the lack of a better word. The Tao is all-encompassing, and it's beyond everything that our senses can perceive. Still, we can know and feel the Tao, even though we cannot comprehend it. This symbolizes the tragic attempts by humans to conceptualize things that are beyond their understanding. They use names and categories, they select and discern, but fail to grasp what the universe is truly like. So they create a deception, an artifice that makes life understandable for humans. But by trying to comprehend, they lose the Tao. 5 colors blind the eye, 5 notes deafen the ear, 5 flavors make the palate go stale, wrote Lao Tzu in his work, the Tao Te Ching. So by arranging colors, notes, and flavors, we might enhance our understanding, but we also limit it as there is so much more outside of these fixed concepts. The same goes for the human tendency to make rock-solid rules for everything, to get a sense of control. Again, we limit ourselves by doing so, because the world is ever-changing. And what works today may not work tomorrow. Also, from a sense of solidarity and justice, people create immense bodies of ethics, moral codes, and rituals that form an artificial way of life. Even though the intentions are good, they try to make things work while building their prisons. Now let's talk about the word, trying. I think most of us are familiar with the idea that we should simply act and not try. This idea is closely related to the flow state. In a flow state, one becomes the act, like a dancer, who becomes the dance, or the poet who becomes the poem. This is Wu Wei, a concept that can be translated as non-doing or doing nothing. In the context of the flow state, Wu Wei translates best as effortless action because we act smoothly and painlessly. In the context of this video, however, translating Wu Wei as non-doing or doing nothing fits best. Literally doing nothing is often seen as unproductive and as a useless way of being, in which there is no progression, but according to the Taoists, nothing is further from the truth. When we keep in mind that the universe is in flux and a state of entropy, we will realize that there is always progression in the natural flow of life. So instead of using force and exhausting ourselves, which is the favorite method of today's culture, we could travel through life much more easily by using intelligence. Because is not it so that so many times problems seem to solve themselves? And that by taking action, we often make things worse. When we waste our time trying to improve things, we distance ourselves from the natural course. We repeatedly act in ways that are, according to the Taoists, unnatural and waste our bodies and minds doing so. So why do we do this? Well, it has a lot to do with how we attribute value to the certain things. For example, when we are averse to poverty, but desire money and fame, and when we are averse to being lonely, but desire to be part of something, so we try to eradicate the former and increase the latter, while the latter cannot exist without the former. Also, we think that it is necessary to conform and alter nature based on certain belief systems. We try to better the world, while the results of our interventions are kind of questionable. Now, how can we bring these ancient theories into the modern world? According to Taoist thinking, in what ways do we modern humans try, while our efforts only leave us with the peanuts in the end? Let's explore some examples of how we try using the ancient Taoist scriptures, the Tao Te Ching and the Zhuangzi. The first one is trying to improve the world. Alan Watts, who was a fervent scholar of Taoism, once pointed out that the goody-goodies of society are the biggest troublemakers. Their must-save-the-world attitude often disrupts the natural course. simply because they seek to enforce man-made ideas of what's good and evil. An example is communism, which originally sprouted from a desire to change humanity for the better, based on equality and honest distribution of goods. However, apart from the discussion if this approach is natural or not, how the communists spread their ideology were absolutely brutal. In the Zhuangzi, we find a story about a man named Yan Hui, who asked Confucius for permission to travel to the country of Wei, after he heard that it's ruled by an incompetent ruler. Yan Hui wanted to use everything he learned about governance to improve the country of Wei. Confucius, however, discouraged him from doing so, not only because Wei's highly disagreeable leader probably would not listen, but also because people in general don't like outsiders coming in, telling them what's better for them from a place of moral supremacy. As Confucius stated, if you do not understand men's minds, but instead appear before a tyrant and force him to listen to sermons on benevolence and righteousness measures and standards, this is simply using other men's bad points to parade your excellence. We could ask ourselves, in what way is using other people's faults to create a nice role on the moral high ground? This only creates more division and more tension and will unlikely change things for the better in a sustainable manner. As Lao Tzu puts it in the Tao Te Ching, do you want to rule the world and control it? I don't think it can ever be done. The world is a sacred vessel and it cannot be controlled. You will only make it worse if you try. It may slip through your fingers and disappear. Now the second one is trying to be happy, no matter if it's the pursuit of money, status, fame, power, or knowledge. These ongoing efforts to be happy are the reason why we are not. We think that we are happy when we have got $1 million in the bank, or when we finally published a book, or when our YouTube channel have 100K subscribers. But this is hardly the case. Sure, we enjoy some momentary pleasure, but that's not happiness according to the Taoists. Moreover, by this pursuit, we exhaust our bodies and minds, while tragically never achieving what we are looking for. This is what the world honors: wealth, eminence, long life, a good name. This is what the world finds happiness in: a life of ease, rich food, fine clothes, beautiful sights, sweet sounds. This is what it looks down on: poverty, meanness, early death, a bad name. This is what it finds bitter: a life that knows no rest, a mouth that gets no rich food, no fine clothes. For the body, no beautiful sights for the eye, no sweet sounds for the ear. People who can't get these things fret a great deal and are afraid. This is a stupid way to treat the body. Rich people wear themselves out rushing around on business, piling up more wealth than they could ever use. This is a superficial way to treat the body. So when chasing happiness is a blind alley, what should we do instead? Well, the Taoists give us some suggestions. But before we go into them, let's look at the third one: trying to be something else. The Zhuangzi tells us a story about animals and the wind that envy each other for their inborn characteristics. The centipede envies the snake for the fact that it can move without legs, but the snake envies the wind for its ability to travel great distances without having a body at all. However, the wind argues that it takes just a finger or foot to hinder it. All in all, nature has created everything with its attributes. Nothing is better than the other. Only judgment makes it so. Thus, we feel the need to change who we are, just to fit an ideal. White-skinned people try to be tanned, while East Asians try to look more European. Brunettes try to be blondes, and blondes try to be brunettes. Also, we try to change ourselves because we want to conform to a man-made standard to fit in, simply because we are seen as defects when we don't. So a sixth finger is cut off just to comply with the five-finger standard. Why can't we just be who we are, the way nature intended us to be? That would be so much easier. Everyone and everything has its place in the whole, and by trying to alter this, we bring the world into disbalance. When people see things as beautiful, ugliness is created. When people see things as good, evil is created. Being and non-being produce each other. Difficult and easy complement each other. Long and short define each other. High and low oppose each other. Fore and aft follow each other. So how can we put these ideas into practice? The Taoists suggest several things. First of all, the Zhuangzi points to the benefits of taking the middle path. This means that we should not stretch ourselves beyond our means, but stay centered, so we conserve our health and stay close to our nature. Follow the middle. Go by what is constant, and you can stay in one piece. Keep yourself alive, look after your parents, and live out your years. The Tao is constant, and one who seeks the Tao unlearns something new every day according to Lao Tzu. So instead of limiting ourselves to a belief system, we let go, keep an open mind, and give the universe room to show itself as it is. Trying to change nature is a futile pursuit, as is trying to blur our vision of nature with man-made constructs. Instead of adding to knowledge, we let go of knowledge until we reach a point of inner stillness. Only then we are opening ourselves up to the Tao, or what we, from theistic point of view. In this state of emptiness, we feel content. And contentment is true happiness. The Taoists call this process the fasting of the heart, by unlearning something every day. The Taoist arrives at non-action. It's the art of not trying, while nothing will be left undone. Thank you for watching.